This video was brought to you by CuriosityStream. Get a whole bunch of exclusive TLDR videos by signing up using the link in the description. If you turn on the news today, you might think that the war in Ukraine is the only major conflict in the world right now. But away from the media spotlight, the war in Ethiopia between federal forces and a loose conglomerate of regional militias has been rumbling on, causing as much, if not more harm than Putin's invasion. Add to that, tensions have been rising between Ethiopia and their neighbours Sudan. So in this video, we're going to go through the ongoing conflict and the burgeoning border dispute, which could make matters worse. So, before we get into the most recent developments on the border, a quick recap. Now, we've covered the war in Ethiopia in far more detail in previous videos. So if you're interested in that war specifically, then go and watch those ones. But the TLDR of that TLDR is that since late 2020, Ethiopia's government, led by incumbent Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, has been waging a civil war against the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, a regional militia who held power from 1991 to 2018. The TPLF actually played a pivotal role in overthrowing the infamous Derg regime, a ruthless Marxist-Leninist military junta who ruled Ethiopia with Soviet support from 1974 until 1991. And when the junta fell, they were replaced by the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, which was packed with TPLF members. The TPLF's reign was a mixed bag. Elections were a sham, political opponents were killed and jailed, and there was an extensive border war with Eritrea from 1998 to 2000. There was also some questionable fiscal management, with Ethiopia's debt to GDP ratio rising from 24% in 1997 to 60% in 2018, with nearly half of all external debt being owed to China. Nonetheless, the TPLF clearly did some good. Under their tenure, child mortality fell from 20% to 5%. There was basically no civil war, no serious famine, and Ethiopia was the world's third fastest growing economy, after only Myanmar and China. Anyway, in 2018, following widespread protests against the TPLF's election rigging, the other factions of the EPRDF joined forces to outvote the TPLF and elect Abiy Ahmed as their leader. Now, Abiy is an ex-soldier, and it's worth saying that he's not particularly keen on the TPLF, and as such, the TPLF decided to leave the EPRDF, which was then rebranded as the Prosperity Party. Now, Abiy and the TPLF don't get along for a number of reasons, but here are the main three. Firstly, Abiy was pretty critical of the TPLF's record in government, describing the TPLF as daytime hyenas, and referring to their 27-year stint in power as 27 years of darkness. Secondly, Abiy wanted to centralize power in the Ethiopian federal state. The TPLF, unsurprisingly, disagree, both because they run the regional government in Tigray, and also because Tigrayans represent only about 8% of Ethiopia's population. Thirdly, Abiy pursued friendlier relations with Eritrea and their totalitarian president. At the time, this effort was roundly lauded by the international community, and Abiy even received a Nobel Peace Prize for his peace deal in 2018. But in retrospect, it looks like this agreement wasn't just about peace, and was at least partly motivated by both sides' mutual dislike of the TPLF. Anyway, these tensions all came to a head in late 2020, after the TPLF held regional elections in defiance of Abiy's orders to postpone elections until after the pandemic had subsided. The TPLF then staged what they described as a preemptive attack against federal forces on the Tigrayan border, and then federal forces responded in kind, sparking a full-on civil war. So far, the war has had essentially three phases. During the first phase, which lasted from November 2020 until May 2021, it looked like federal forces were on track for a quick and easy victory. And in fact, federal forces declared victory after just a month of fighting, having taken the regional capital in Tigray. But they began to face difficulties in the second phase, which runs from June 2021 to November. That's because the TPLF essentially waited for federal forces to get bored of the fight, and then staged a rapid counteroffensive, quickly recapturing all of Tigray and then some of the neighboring Afar region. In this time, the TPLF also joined forces with 8 other anti-Abiy groups and rebranded themselves as the Tigrayan Defense Forces, or TDF. And with the movement revitalized, by November the TDF had reached towns just 200 kilometers away from the capital, and it was around then that Abiy realized that he was in trouble, and began procuring arms from at least 4 different countries: Iran, Israel, Turkey, and the UAE, including drones from Turkey. Which brings us to the third part of the war, which runs from December 2021 until today. In December, federal forces used drone strikes to strike back against the TDF before they declared a unilateral truce on March 24th. 4 days later, Tigray's authorities said that they would adhere to the cessation of hostilities, opening the door to negotiations between the two sides. Now, while this agreement does look encouraging, and fighting did initially die down, little progress has been made in the negotiations. And over the weekend, there are reports that the conflict had spilled out into the Al-Fashqa region, a disputed territory between Ethiopia and Sudan. And Sudan has accused Ethiopian federal forces of executing 7 Sudanese soldiers and a civilian in the region, and responded by shelling nearby Ethiopian bases. This is clearly a major escalation of the conflict, with now another country getting involved, but this region has been tense for a while now. It was in 2008 that Ethiopia first ceded the region to Sudan, on the condition that Ethiopian farmers and militants could stay there undisturbed. But when Ethiopian forces became preoccupied with the war in Tigray, Sudanese forces started to drive out Ethiopian farmers. So, in the last 2 years, there have been multiple minor skirmishes in the region. And now that the TPLF have been all but dealt with, it's possible that we could see more serious retaliation against Sudan from Ethiopian federal forces. And this is particularly worrying news, not least because it means that what began as a civil war could spill out into an interstate conflict in an already precarious region of Africa, but also because a new war would only exacerbate the existing food crisis in Tigray. Beginning in early 2021, federal forces began blocking aid deliveries into Tigray. According to the latest UN report, some 55 million people are facing high levels of food insecurity at the moment, making it the worst famine in the last decade. Researchers from Belgium's Ghent University estimate that as many as 200,000 people have already died from starvation, on top of the 50 to 100,000 people that have died in fighting, and the further 100,000 people from a lack of medical attention. All in all, while the truce was a good start, if it gets sidelined by a full-on war between Ethiopia and Sudan, there will be massive humanitarian costs in the region. And it's certainly something we should be keeping an eye on. But if that's not enough TLDR for you, then we've got a ton of exclusive videos available on Nebula, and all of our content there is totally ad-free. There you can find our exclusive breakdown of the world's brainiest countries, an explainer about the island where you'll definitely be killed, and our discussion of Transnistria, the country which never really existed. And those videos are only a start of it, with us posting exclusive content on Nebula every single weekday, including ad-free versions of all of our videos. Now, if you're interested in that, then I've got some good news, because we've partnered with CuriosityStream, home of the best documentaries online. And thanks to them, you can get both streaming services, CuriosityStream for the documentaries and Nebula for bonus TLDR, for less than $15 a year. That's a wild deal, and a 26% discount on their already low price. So get yourself a ton of documentaries and exclusive content from your favorite creators, including the Daily Briefing Extended Edition, by signing up using the link below. Thanks for your support.